Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Ben. Welcome to the channel. Today we're doing a couple of different things. Like many of you, I've found myself with a lot of extra time on my hands, and that means I've been putting together a list of sort of the routine maintenance things on the rig that I just never seem to find time for. That might just be because I'm pretty lazy, but it's things like refilling the windshield wiper fluid, cleaning out the floor mats, and one of the biggest items on that list that I never managed to tackle is greasing up the truck. So there are a number of spots on the truck that need routine greasing. Things like the delta joints on the upper control arms and some other spots along the driveline. And it is important that those happen at the regularly prescribed interval. Really the places that I start to miss and forget about greasing until it really starts to bug me is like the spindle and the lock on the rear swingouts. So the swing out that's open here right now has been bugging me for a while. The lock to keep it open has been getting progressively harder and harder to actuate. And that's because since I installed these back in November, I just haven't greased them. It's been through California's rainy season. It's seen some mud and things like that. And so it's high time that I just pull it apart and grease it. So we're gonna do that today. And I figured that if we're already talking about the rear bumper and swing outs, I might as well sort of do a 6-month review of the Victory 4x4 gear that I had on the truck. The roof rack that's been up there for almost a year now, as well as the front and rear bumpers that, yeah, are just about to hit 6 months. So let's dive right into it. So the rear swing outs on this Victory 4x4 bumper use these spring-loaded pins to drop into place in the cutout to lock the swing out in its open position. This prevents it from swinging too far open and running your spare tire into your rear quarter panel, or the swing out closing on you if you're working back there cooking up dinner or something. So the instructions from Victory 4x4 for putting the bumper together does mention that this is a part that needs to be greased liberally when you first install it and regularly maintained to prevent any sort of sticking or rust buildup, things like that. I put a coat of grease on when I put it together. That was about 6 months ago. I haven't thought of it since until maybe four weeks ago or so, when I first started to notice these sticking up and binding a little bit. And 4 weeks ago I said to myself, I should probably throw more grease on there. It's taken me until now to actually get around to doing it. Don't be like me. Grease the things that need grease. So removing this pin should be pretty straightforward. I think it's important to note that this ball on top is threaded on. You don't need to remove that, just leave that guy on there. And what you want to do is actually grab this knurled collar down here, and that's the part to unscrew. And when you do that, you should be able to just pull the whole assembly out of there. The pin and spring and collar are all locked together. If you pull that knob off on the top, let's see if we can get that to focus there. So if you pull that knob off on the top, then that just lets you pull off the collar and the spring, and you're left with 4 pieces to deal with instead of just a single piece. And there's really nothing special about greasing this guy up. You can liberally lube up the barrel of the pin. You can throw some grease down into the hole here too, and slap it back together, actuate it a few times, make sure everything is coated fully. So I know I just mentioned that removing the pin should be pretty straightforward. It definitely was on the tire carrier side, and then I just tried to do this one for you guys, and I could not get the pin out. So that means things are probably pretty gross in there. So I've tried to do a couple of things at this point to get it out. Sprayed it with some penetrating oil down in the barrel of the sleeve, gently sort of tapped on it with a hammer from the top side, and I just can't get it to budge. So I think that what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the pin from the other side and come up from the bottom here and try to hammer the pin up and out. Oh, there we go. Okay, it feels like we broke free of whatever crud was holding us in there. Yeah. All right, that could have been worse, but you can see here, as we pull it out, it is pretty rusty. I probably should have done a better job greasing this, but hindsight. Let's clean it up and get some grease on there. All right, so I got the pins cleaned up, got all the old grease off, got some of the surface rust off, and now it's time to re-grease them. I've got the Lucas Oil Red and Tacky. It's sort of my go-to grease for most things around the shop. You can use whatever you have on hand. And if you were smart, you would glove up before you do this. I can't find my nitrile gloves. So we're just gonna get real well acquainted with the Red and Tacky. Go ahead and just be liberal with it. Get that on there. You want to probably do all parts of the pin. So you've got the main shaft of the pin is the thin part here. This upper part with the threading on it is where the spring sits. And of course that ball threads on top there. And then really just take the greased up shaft and send it home. Move it around a little bit, get it in and out, and just make sure everything's nice and lubed up and happy in there. So just in case the grease didn't get you messy enough, I think it's probably a good idea to go ahead and paint a little bit of anti-seize on the threads of the collar, just so that you don't get any corrosion build up there. That'll make your life even harder if you try to grease these things in the future. Yeah, anti-seize is great, but man, it gets everywhere. I've got the little paintbrush in the cap. A little bit goes a long way. You don't need very much. Ugh. And of course, I'm not actually going to be able to paint it on. I'm going to have to go ahead and use my finger. All right, we've got the anti-seize in those threads. And now we just have to screw back in that collar and we're home free. This pin should work as good as new. So now that we've got both rear swingouts working like new, I wanted to quickly take a minute to just talk about my experience with these Victory 4x4 bumpers over the last 6 months. Now, I guess a quick disclaimer here, this video is not sponsored, the rig's not sponsored. I bought the Victory 4x4 bumpers because I really liked what I was hearing about them and I liked the way they looked. And so far they've completely met my expectations. So I added hundreds of pounds of steel to the front and rear of the 4Runner, and I guess the question is, do I notice it? My answer is not really. So on a good day before the bumpers with an awesome tailwind heading downhill, I might be lucky to hit about 13 miles per gallon. Since adding the bumpers, I'm averaging right around 12.6, 12.7, somewhere in there. So not a huge difference by any means. The install of the bumpers was super simple. The fit and finish was excellent. I've got really no complaints about the bumpers. So the thing that has surprised me the most is actually how I feel about the dual swing outs themselves. I never noticed just how often I get into the rear hatch until, of course, I installed these guys. It adds just a couple of extra steps every time you want to get into that rear cargo area that after a while has gotten a bit annoying. The spare tire carrier, of course, was a bit inevitable. Since moving to the larger tires, I didn't have a place for a full-size spare anymore, so this one is critical, and I would do this one again in a heartbeat. The second swing out, though, I think I could live without. I might actually start only putting it on for trips. Its primary purpose is the shovel, a Rotopax, the Max Tracks, things like that. And I just hardly ever have them on the truck since it is my daily driver. If I could do it all over again, I don't actually think there's much I would change. I would definitely do the spare tire carrier, maybe save a little cash and not do the second swing out in the back here, but so far the bumpers are great. All right, so that's a wrap for this video. I hope you guys are all staying safe and healthy and putting this time to good use, getting your rig adventure ready for the next time we're able to get out and explore somewhere. Until next time.